My identifier is Clara Vance. I reached 32 when I stepped past the boundary line at Camp Pendleton. 3 months of 0330 wake-ups, chemical mask operations, and mastering an assembly routine for a rifle under numbed fingers under 60 seconds. I earned that transition entirely. Each grueling hike through California heat, each push-up in dry desert gravel, each evening I remained wakeful tracking 40 female recruits resting around me. Dismissal morning felt oppressive and deafening. 300 candidates maintained attention, attire crisp, footwear gleaming under dawn rays like mirrors. The bleachers behind our unit overflowed with relatives. I recognized sounds prior to spotting movement. Parents weeping into linens, guardians shouting names, toddlers displaying placards decorated with sparkles and uneven characters. Throughout the procession, I shifted focus once. Row G, column 12, positions 5, 6, and 7. I forwarded those exact positions to my creator, my mother, and my brother 2 months prior. Every single position remained vacant. Upon completion, surrounding personnel dissolved into a sea of embraces and celebration. I lingered upright, gripping my credential, witnessing the display. A person I lacked familiarity with approached, pressed a hand against my sleeve, and remarked, "We appreciate your effort, young lady." Yet those vacant spaces represented merely the prelude. What my father messaged me 20 days later, and the events occurring once I ultimately replaced the entry deadbolts on my residence, that marks the true narrative opening. Here we broadcast chronicles regarding domestic betrayal, quiet endurance, and the exact second someone establishes a permanent boundary. If this resonates deeply, drop a remark and select subscription. Allow me to describe the Vance household. My father, Arthur Vance, operated as an electrician around Gary, Indiana. He secured an income of $64,000 annually, maintained homeownership completely. Each weekend he scrubbed his Ram pickup like a religious requirement. He represented the sort of individual holding an internal spreadsheet about every cent expended on descendants, never transcribed, retained. And he guaranteed you received the total during every evening gathering. My mother, Elena, worked as a nursing assistant who permitted Arthur to manage every choice: what we consumed for sustenance, where we traveled for holidays, which relative received funding and which walked away empty. She possessed judgments, but she maintained them locked away like the expensive porcelain, behind cabinets, for visitors exclusively. Then existed Julian, my senior sibling, 2 terms ahead of me regarding age, lacking any responsibility. Julian received a pristine vehicle for his diploma. I received his discarded sedan after he operated it 3 terms. Julian obtained $3,000 for his initial residence deposit. I obtained public transit tickets and directions to secure employment at the diner along Broadway. When Julian relocated, Mom and Dad provided the opening and concluding property fees. When I relocated, Father declared, "You possess capability, you will handle it." And I succeeded, every single occurrence. Before deploying for first preparation, I provided them an extra opener to my residence. My partners and my's dwelling. We purchased it 36 months past, utilizing a veteran loan and my capital accumulated from 6 terms as a civilian logistics specialist. I transferred the opener to Father across the counter space and mentioned, "Should difficulties arise while I remain absent, monitor the property." He accepted it without offering gratitude, attached it onto his ring like it belonged there. I ought to have noted that action. I joined at 29. Observers questioned why I hesitated so long. The transparent truth was I occupied my 20s achieving what my household should have backed at 18. I funded my education at Indiana State University, distribution management degree, maintained 3 positions concurrently, day breaks at a Frent facility, afternoons guiding scholars at the Academic Literacy Center, Saturdays managing banquets and services. Finished with $13,000 in educational debts and 0 assistance from guardians. Father's perspective was simple. Julian needed funding because Julian faltered. I needed nothing because I never faltered. The reality that I never faltered because I pushed myself to breakdown was a point he chose to overlook. After graduation, I operated for a distribution corporation near Chicago. Good compensation, reliable routine. However, I desired greater structure, greater meaning. My partner completed 4 terms within the Marines before our introduction, and he described it like the foundation that forged him. Consequently, at 29, I entered an enlistment office and finalized documentation. Father shrugged. Your decision. Mom said, maintain caution, sweetheart. Julian inquired, meaning you are skipping my matrimonial celebration then? Prior to transitioning out toward Camp Pendleton, I established an electronic remittance, $450 monthly from my balance to Father's. He never requested it directly, though every holiday he remarked how restricted finances were, how local assessments escalated, how Julian required assistance with various obligations. Consequently, I instituted it, an automated obligation transaction on the initial day of each month. I additionally settled Julian's revolving balances twice, $1,400 initially, $2,600 subsequently. He promised reimbursement. He never brought up the matter afterward. Rigorous training reduces everything down to essentials. You discover your composition when nobody watches and nobody assists. Each Sunday we received 10 minutes for domestic contact. The institution distributed those intervals like restricted hydration, valuable, regulated, never enough. I phoned Mom every week. Week 1, she inquired how I endured the stress. I detailed the instructors, the housing units, the pale sand that coated everything beige. She attended for roughly 90 seconds, then shifted discussion. Julian secured the facility, Crestview Manor. It is exceptional, Clara. $300 per person. Week 3, Father answered Mom's device. Your mother is sampling pastries alongside Julian. I will state you phoned. He disconnected before I could articulate further words. The connection consumed 42 seconds. Week 5, I dialed Father's device directly. No connection. I attempted once more the subsequent Sunday. No connection. The Sunday following that, identical outcome. 3 periods consecutively. I ceased calling him afterward. The void lengthened. Communications went neglected. Parcels I dispatched for celebrations returned stamped undeliverable to recipient. I convinced myself it carried no weight. I belonged to the service currently. I possessed an objective, a unit, a calling. Yet during darkness, following lights out, I would rest there and evaluate every weekend gathering, every celebration I financed independently, every instance I handled Julian's housing costs when he remained between positions. The framework was transparent. I remained valuable provided I remained contributing. The moment I required reciprocity, the connection dissolved. Commencement was anticipated to be the milestone transforming this reality. Contrarily, I remained on that grass clutching a token and grasped that I preserved this unit single-handedly for generations. An unfamiliar parent embracing me fixed nothing. It merely rendered the emptiness more absolute. 3 weeks following arrival at my initial placement, the communication arrived. from father. Your mother and I require funding for structural repairs. Can you dispatch $2,000? Lacking well done, lacking how are things, merely the demand. I avoided transferring it. Instead, I contacted the building supervisor and questioned if anyone accessed my property around Gary while I remained away. They had 3 instances, utilizing the duplicate opener I provided them. When I finally journeyed home on furlough, I replaced the cylinders, every single one. Then I reclined at my counter and formulated a message I would never dispatch. It declared, "I care, but I refuse to remain the solitary individual participating." That marked the instance I abandoned supporting them. And for the initial moment in generations, I felt unburdened. The solitary correspondence that delivered to my position at Camp Pendleton originated from Julian's partner. It represented a postcard displaying an image of our retriever, Copper, lounging along the patio tiles as though he commanded the estate. Across the reverse, he had inscribed, "Residence remains intact. Hound gathered 5 pounds. Value your achievement. Return quickly." I retained that postcard inside my combat pocket for 5 weeks. It turned fragile around the edges due to perspiration and friction. Sergeant First Class Vance observed the item during assembly. She stood short, muscular, and her delivery could strip coating off an armored vehicle. One morning, she summoned me outside assembly. "Vance, relative day occurs next week. You possess anyone arriving?" I encountered her gaze. "Affirmative, Sergeant First Class." She sustained my focus 2 seconds further than required. She knew the truth. Instructors invariably know the truth. She offered a solitary gesture and departed. I had falsified. Nobody was arriving. Relative day represented the afternoon preceding completion. The checkpoints unfastened and relatives flooded inside like a deluge. Trucks bearing adhesive slogans, transports featuring inflatables secured to the frames, elders pulling folding seating, youngsters in matching garments. I observed the spectacle through the dormitory pane. 20 minutes afterwards, Vance located me. "Vance, accompany me." She escorted me across the assembly grass toward assembly surrounding a recruit named Miller. His guardian represented a substantial person possessing a chuckle that resonated across the perimeter and a container packed with roasted poultry. His father sported an absolute veteran emblem. His younger sister persisted leaping onto Miller's shoulders. "Mrs. Miller, this represents Specialist Vance. She needs some companionship presently." Mrs. Miller requested no explanations. She embraced me in a grasp smelling of pastries and remarked, "Rest here, sweetheart. You raving?" I consumed roasted poultry alongside strangers while my native guardian occupied a shop around Valparaiso, selecting marital headwear alongside Julian. I know this reality because Elena transmitted the image inside our domestic group communication at 1414. She remained smiling. Unused headwear, value indicators still suspended from the border. Commencement the subsequent morning transpired within a shimmer of addresses and salutes. I traversed the platform, grasped the officer's hand, accepted my credentials, and scanned toward the bleachers of final instance, row G, column 12, 3 vacant positions. Following the event, I inspected my device. One message from my guardian. "Apologies, sweetheart. Father is backing Julian regarding the estate transaction. We will mark the occasion when you return. You comprehend naturally." You comprehend naturally. 4 units Elena utilized like a pass key. They unfastened every entrance she declined to step through. I comprehended perfectly. My partner waited at Indianapolis International, bearing a handwritten placard displaying SPC Vance and an expression that rendered the entire concourse invisible for an instant. He embraced me within baggage collection, extended, firm. his jaw positioned against my head. "I feel regret they avoided arriving, Clara. I understand." We navigated homeward. Copper nearly upended my balance at the entryway. I cleared my luggage, suspended my formal attire within the wardrobe, and rested along the mattress for an extended duration without shifting. The subsequent afternoon, I navigated toward my guardian's residence, 15 minutes across settlement. Elena responded in a dressing gown, beverage in hand, appearing startled. "Oh, Clara, when did you arrive?" "Yesterday." "Well, enter. Your father occupies the study." Arthur observed a baseball broadcast. He glanced upward, gestured, and remarked, "Greetings, youngster. You dropped mass." That concluded it. No commendations, no inquiries regarding preparation, no acknowledgement of the ceremony they neglected. He reverted toward the broadcast. Julian arrived 20 minutes afterwards bearing a white folio. Metallic lettering along the binding indicated Vance Miller Matroni. He rested at the dining surface and articulated regarding seating arrangements for 30 minutes continuously. The decorator calculated excessively, the entertainer demanded a transaction by Friday, the companion garments arrived in the incorrect tint of rose. He avoided directing one inquiry toward me regarding initial preparation. I rested there attending, and an element transformed within me, excluding resentment. Similar to a mechanic snapping unfastened, an entrance I had been straining against for generations drifted open. Throughout the journey homeward, I checked my financial application. The $450 electronic remittance processed on the 1st, identical to every period. No communication, no appreciation, just an automatic subtraction and a vacant portal. I found the workspace on a Tuesday. My partner had mentioned the matter during preparation, but he minimized the situation. "Your father transferred some items over, stated he needed the clearing." I envisioned a container or pair, perhaps a casting rod. When I unfastened the partition barrier, I ceased advancing. Arthur had relocated half his machinery. 3 casting rods hung across a rack fastened inside my insulation boards. A red storage chest, 6 sections, substantial enough to require 2 individuals to reposition. A cooling unit operating in the boundary. A utility table with his equipment container unfastened above. 2 unmarked packing boxes positioned against the distant barrier. My partner approached behind my position. Indeed, that transpired around week 3. He drilled into my insulation. He possessed the extra opener. He'd arrived over while I occupied employment. That evening I dialed my parent and maintained my expression steady. "Father, you positioned a lot of your machinery inside our workspace." "I possessed the opener, correct? The location remained vacant most of the afternoon, required the clearing." "You drilled into the insulation boards." "It represents merely a couple fasteners. Relax." I avoided debating. I disconnected and occupied the subsequent 45 minutes capturing everything inside the workspace. Every image featured an indicator. I formulated a register across a yellow legal pad. Object, state, calculated value. 3 sheets. Then I unfastened my financial application and terminated the $400 electronic remittance, effective immediately. I avoided informing anyone, excluding Julian's partner, excluding Elena, excluding Arthur. I merely closed the valve and waited to discover how long it would require them to observe the flow had ceased. It consumed 11 days. 11 days following my termination of the transaction, my guardian phoned. "Clara, sweetheart, your father inspected the balance. The remittance failed to arrive this period." I terminated it, Mom. Void, excluding the comfortable variety. The variety where you can perceive someone restructuring their entire arrangement in real moment. "You cannot do that. Your father relies upon that capital." Father secures $65,000 annually. He cleared the residence in 2019. His truck is 3 terms old. He lacks reliance upon my $400. That doesn't address the point. Kin supports kin. Kin participates, Mom. She turned quiet once more. Then arrived the transition, fluid, practiced, the method she invariably utilized. After everything we accomplished for you, Clara, after your father working double rotations to preserve a shelter over your skull. What precisely did you accomplish for me you did not accomplish for Julian? Name one instance. She faltered, excluding because there lacked an explanation, but because the explanation represented the problem. 10 minutes later, my device signaled once more. Arthur. What represents this regarding you terminating the capital? I terminated the electronic remittance. That represents $400 monthly, Clara. Your sibling celebration occurs in 2 periods, and you're executing this currently? Julian's celebration possesses 0 connection with my financial balance. Kin participates, Clara. Kin contributes. Dishonesty. You avoided participating at my commencement, Father. 5 seconds of void. I track them. Then the connection dissolved. I positioned the device across the kitchen surface. My partner glanced upward from the settee. Did that proceed successfully? Roughly what I anticipated. He gestured and reverted toward his volume. Copper stepped over and positioned her skull against my knee. I caressed behind her ears and focused on the barrier. The initial marker had collapsed. I could perceive the rest of them beginning to totter. Clara merely terminated the capital. Her father remains already incensed. Yet what transpires when the actual demand arrives, the instant that transforms everything? You will doubt what he messaged her subsequently. If you remain captivated, select subscribe so you avoid missing a solitary development. 3 weeks subsequent, on a Saturday dawn in October, my device vibrated across the nightstand. I prepared omelets. My partner occupied the surface, reviewing the intelligence across his screen. Copper rested under the surface awaiting remainders. Common dawn, common life. I gathered the device. Message from Father. Clara, I require $8,000 regarding your sibling celebration. Facility transaction required Friday. Forward it to my balance. I read it twice, excluding because I lacked comprehension, but because I desired to ensure I avoided misinterpreting the nerve. 0 salutation, 0 how are things, 0 would you evaluate, 0 I require, and forward it. The method you would message someone guidelines for gathering laundry. I stepped over toward my partner and extended my device. He reviewed it, positioned his screen down, and detached his lenses. He cannot remain earnest. He remains entirely earnest. I unfastened Instagram, navigated toward Julian's profile, and inspected his latest update from the afternoon preceding. A mirror reflection within a matrimonial establishment examining a garment featuring a cathedral length. She identified the business. I selected through. The garment remained valued at $4,200. She examined a $4,000 garment while our parent messaged me regarding $8,000. I positioned my device face beneath across the surface, walked toward the washroom, activated the stream, and lingered beneath the hydration for 12 minutes. I avoided weeping. I remained calculating. $13,500 within electronic remittances across 30 periods. $3,500 within credit obligation redemptions for Julian. 0 toward my training. 0 domestic units at my commencement. And currently, $8,000 further, conveyed excluding as a request, but as an instruction. I deactivated the hydration, cleansed my face, and focused within the mirror. I recognized precisely what I intended to execute. I unfastened my financial app and inspected the total, sufficient to cover the celebration should I desire. I secured the app. Contrarily, I structured a message and avoided transmitting it. I exclude your dispenser. If you desire a connection, initiate participating. Then I erased it. My partner found me in the kitchen 10 minutes subsequent, resting alongside a vessel of chilled beverage. What are you evaluating? That should they desire me at that celebration, they must request like I represent kin, excluding a treasury. He gestured, copper pressed against my limb. For the initial instance in generations, the conclusion felt untangled. Zero remorse, zero defense, merely a boundary established in clear view. My partner remained resting by the dining surface when I exited. He'd supplied me with warm beverage. He maintained silence until I occupied my position. What do you intend to execute? That represented my partner. Zero lectures, zero steering inquiries, merely an accessible entrance. Permit me to evaluate aloud for an instant. He gestured. Throughout the previous 30 periods, I've dispatched Father $12,000 within electronic remittances. I redeemed Julian's revolving credit twice, $1,200 and $2,300. That totals $15,500 altogether. Nobody has ever requested Julian to contribute toward anything, not once. My partner leaned rearward, and currently he demands 8 additional. Excluding demands, requires. He inscribed, I require, as though it stands already concluded and I represent merely the distribution agent. What are you evaluating? I gathered my device and unfastened the remittance application. I'm evaluating providing my parent precisely what he represents. My partner observed me for an instant. Then the border of his jaw twitched. Excluding a grin, more similar to recognition, he'd witnessed me determine conclusions like this before. Unobtrusive, conclusive, zero turning rearward. You remain certain? I have never remained more certain about anything. He arose, pressed a kiss across my crown, and reverted back to the settee to gather his volume. That represented my partner. He never instructed me what to execute. He never forced. He merely asked what I desired and stepped clear of the room. Following an existence of personnel designating my position, his silence represented the loudest support I've ever possessed. I focused upon the application display. My thumbs lingered above the interface. I recorded $8. Within the description row, I inscribed 2 words, highest regards. My thumb lingered above the green transmission control for roughly 10 seconds. My partner glanced upward from his volume. He avoided articulating anything. He merely elevated his brows. I pressed transmission. The verification emerged. $8 forwarded to Arthur Vance, highest regards. I positioned the device across the surface and returned toward the range. The omelets turned cold. I transferred them into the bin and initiated a fresh sequence. 47 minutes of silence. I recognized this because I inspected the timer when the initial signal arrived. Missed signal from Father, then subsequent, then a third. Then a message from Mom, contact your father instantly. Then Julian, 1 message, 7 units. Are you serious presently, Clara? I avoided responding to any. I deactivated the alert, placed the device within the kitchen container adjacent to pamphlets and expired cells, and secured it. My partner and I consumed sustenance, scrambled eggs, toast, fruit extract. We conversed regarding updating the kitchen fixture and whether copper needed a veterinary evaluation. Standard elements, unobtrusive elements. At midday, I prepared pasta for evening dining, seared the protein, reduced the dressing, placed it in the cooling unit. I cleansed the kitchen, managed laundry, escorted copper for a circuit around the boundary. Somewhere across town, my household remained losing stability over $8, and I remained organizing linens. It represented the most tranquil I'd felt in generations. That evening, I inspected the device. 11 missed signals, 6 messages, 1 audio recording from my parent. The substance: you possess 1 week to adjust this, or you can disregard possessing a father. I positioned the device back within the container. The domestic group communication detonated that night. Julian discharged initially. He captured my application transaction, $8, highest regards, and placed it inside the communication lacking text. Merely the reflection, permitted to articulate independently. Aunt Gloria responded under a minute. That represents unkindness, Clara. Your father requested backing, and you taunted him. Uncle Frank, he requested appropriately. You ought to feel regret concerning your conduct. My mother, I developed you superior to this. Cousin Amy articulated nothing. She never executed anything inside that communication. Messages accumulated rapidly, 14 within 20 minutes. Every instance a variation of the identical premise. I remained self-absorbed, unappreciative, fracturing the household apart. Not one acknowledged commencement. Not one inquired why I forwarded $8 contrarily to $8,000. Not one questioned if the demand independently stood logical. Then I observed the remark that halted me entirely. Uncle Frank responding to Julian's capture. Arthur still possesses the opener to her residence. Perhaps he ought to arrive over and converse with her individually. I reviewed it 3 times, permitted the units to settle. My parent possessed an opener to my residence. My uncle remained recommending he utilize it to arrive uninvited, and nobody inside the communication perceived anything incorrect with that course. I focused on my partner across the seating space. He remained navigating through his device, partially directing attention. I elevated mine so he could perceive the display. He reviewed Frank's message, his jaw compressed. We require to transform the deadbolts, I stated. He remained already reaching for his outerwear. Tonight, I stated. He gestured. I will return within 30 minutes. The entrance secured behind his departure. That evening, I inspected the device. 11 missed signals, 6 messages, 1 audio recording from my parent. The substance: you possess 1 week to adjust this, or you can disregard possessing a father. I positioned the device back within the container. The domestic group communication detonated that night. Julian discharged initially. He captured my application transaction, $8, highest regards, and placed it inside the communication lacking text. Merely the reflection, permitted to articulate independently. Aunt Gloria responded under a minute. That represents unkindness, Clara. Your father requested backing and you taunted him. Uncle Frank, he requested appropriately. You ought to feel regret concerning your conduct. my mother, I developed you superior to this. Cousin Amy articulated nothing. She never executed anything inside that communication. Messages accumulated rapidly, 14 within 20 minutes. Every instance a variation of the identical premise. I remained self-absorbed, unappreciative, fracturing the household apart. Not one acknowledged commencement. Not one inquired why I sent $8 contrary to $8,000. Not one questioned if the demand itself stood logical. Then I observed the remark that stopped me entirely. Uncle Frank responding to Julian's capture. Arthur still possesses the opener to her residence. Perhaps he ought to arrive over and converse with her individually. I reviewed it 3 times, permitted the units to settle. My parent possessed an opener to my residence. My uncle remained recommending he utilize it to come uninvited, and nobody inside the communication perceived anything wrong with that course of action. I focused on my partner across the seating space. He remained navigating through his device, partially directing attention. I elevated mine so he could see the display. He reviewed Frank's message, his jaw compressed. "We need to transform the deadbolts," I stated. He was already reaching for his outerwear. "Tonight," I stated. He gestured. "I'll be back in 30 minutes. The entrance secured behind his departure. I rested within the quiet residence and listened to the mechanism he remained about to substitute. My partner returned from the supplier bearing a container, unused locking cylinder, brushed metal, unused handle featuring a code mechanism, unused 4-digit combination for the garage portal operator. He initiated upon the primary entrance initially. I transferred him implements from the kitchen container while he operated on his knees within the patio illumination. While he operated, I migrated toward the workspace. I documented everything my parent had abandoned behind. 3 casting rods, an equipment container featuring a damaged enclosure, the red storage chest, 6 sections entirely packed, a cooling unit still operating featuring 4 containers of beverage inside, a utility table, 2 unmarked packing boxes. I captured every object utilizing my device, date indicator, time indicator, every perspective. I inscribed a register across a legal pad, object, state, calculated value. I placed the register inside a protective sleeve and positioned it across the kitchen surface. Then I messaged Arthur, 1 communication, regulated, 0 sentiment. Your private items occupy our workspace. You possess 7 days to organize collection throughout daylight intervals. We will remain home. Phone initially. 0 reaction. My partner concluded the primary entrance by 21:15. He transitioned to the workspace combination, transformed the combination, verified it twice. Then he verified every window security within the residence because that represented who my partner was. At 21:40, he returned toward the seating space, completely concluded, unused cylinder, unused handle, unused workspace combination. Thank you. He sat down adjacent to me, hesitated. I discovered something in your dad's storage chest. He elevated a key, brass, newly constructed, a duplicate of the extra opener, concealed in the lowest section underneath a cleaning cloth. A duplicate of the duplicate. My parent had constructed a backup opener to my residence without informing me. I gathered it from my partner's hand and placed it in the refuse container. It represented the group communication that fractured me unfastened, excluding the recent messages, the historical ones. After Julian published the application capture, I initiated navigating backward through the domestic group communication. I recognize, exclude what I remained searching for. Perhaps verification, perhaps environment. Perhaps I merely required to perceive the framework established in black and white. I located it 4 months past, a discussion from the week I declared my enlistment. Julian had inscribed, "Should Clara depart for preparation, who remains to back my celebration?" My mother responded, "Avoid anxiety. She will still forward capital. She invariably executes so." And then my parent, 6 units, recorded at 2347 on a Tuesday night. That female has represented our backup arrangement since she obtained her primary employment at 16. Backup arrangement. I reviewed it 3 times. Then I reviewed it once more. I navigated further. 2 years preceding, a discussion regarding Julian requiring a transport. Arthur, Julian requires the transport. Clara can handle the situation. She invariably executes so. Diane, I feel regret. Ought we at minimum volunteer to back her property fees? Arthur, she remains fine. She remains invariably fine. She remains invariably fine. Because I had to remain, because nobody provided me the alternative excluding to remain. I sat within my transport within the workspace for an extended period. The unused workspace combination illuminated green across the interface. The power train remained deactivated. The overhead illumination had expired. I remained sitting in the darkness, reviewing messages I remained never intended to observe. My mother's units from commencement resonated back. You comprehend naturally. Presently, I comprehended. I comprehended everything. I remained never the daughter they neglected. I represented the daughter they anticipated neglecting herself. The individual who invariably handled the situation, the individual who invariably forwarded the capital, the backup arrangement. I permitted myself to weep for roughly 5 minutes. Then I ceased. Cleansed my face utilizing my sleeve, executed 3 deliberate breaths. I had wept sufficiently for personnel who never wept regarding me. I transitioned inside. My partner occupied the kitchen surface, featuring his workstation accessible, not completely focusing upon it. I positioned my device across the surface and slid it toward his position. Review the captures. He gathered it, navigated. His expression failed to alter significantly. However, I recognized his indicators. The method his jaw adjusted left, the method his respiration decelerated down. He remained incensed, yet he maintained it steady, regulated, similar to an individual who discovered an extended duration past that losing command fixed nothing. He positioned the device down. Backup arrangement, since you reached 16, apparently. He avoided stating he felt regret. He avoided stating what I ought to execute. He merely placed his hand above mine and retained it there. We sat similar like that for a duration. The kitchen timer synchronized. Copper breathed beneath the surface. Outside, someone's irrigation activated. I began formulating a register in my skull. Every instance I'd represented the individual to handle the situation. Every inherited garment. Every grant I sought because they refused to pay. Every Sunday device contact spent attending to Julian's arrangements instead of anyone inquiring regarding mine. The dance, the transport, the residence deposit, the credit obligation redemptions, the electronic remittance. $15,500. That represented the metric, and that excluded the elements capital could exclude measuring. I am finished comprehending, I stated. My partner compressed my hand once. What follows? His machinery still occupies the workspace. He possesses 4 additional days to collect it. And should he neglect, then he neglects. I arose, cleansed my beverage vessel, and migrated to rest. I reposed heavily that night, lacking dreams, the kind of rest you get when something substantial has ultimately been positioned down. 4 days remaining across the timer. Day 5. 0 word from Arthur regarding collecting his items. I returned home from employment at the distribution center on base. My partner's truck occupied the path. Everything appeared standard from the exterior. Inside, my partner occupied the kitchen surface featuring his workstation accessible. He rotated it toward my direction without articulating anything. Security portal observation recorded 14:17 that afternoon. My parents' truck entering into the path. Arthur exiting out. Advancing to the workspace, recording the historical combination into the interface. Incorrect. Attempting once more. Incorrect. A third instance. Incorrect. He advanced to the primary entrance, positioned the historical opener, rotated it. Nothing. The cylinder sustained. He retreated back, observed the entrance like it had individually insulted his person. Then he advanced back to the workspace and impacted it, one forceful impact right at the base. The device captured the force and the blemish his footwear left across the white coating. He stood within the path throughout 20 minutes, merely lingered there. Then he entered into his truck and navigated away. 20 minutes subsequent, a message from Arthur. Unfasten the entrance, Clara. This represents obscenity. I merely desire my machinery. I answered, I messaged you the collection system. Phone initially. We will remain home. Daylight intervals. Arthur, I lack requirement of authorization to advance to my daughter's residence. Me, it excludes your residence, father. 3 indicators emerged, then dissolved, then nothing. My partner captured the blemish across the workspace portal that evening, integrated it into the protective sleeve. Date, time, characterization. I remained tracking verification, excluding, because I anticipated a conflict. I remained tracking verification because I discovered from 10 weeks of military preparation and 32 terms of representing the Vance backup arrangement that the superior protection represents the category you anticipate you never require. Day 6. My mother emerged at Camp Scott, the military installation where I operated. She failed to pass the checkpoint. Civilian guests required a military companion, and Elena Vance lacked one. Consequently, she positioned within the guest space and dialed my cell. Clara, I occupy the checkpoint. Can you step out? I transitioned out toward the parking space within my operational attire. Elena remained leaning against her sedan, upper limbs crossed, vision crimson. Your father lacks repose, she articulated before I approached the transport. He remains barely consuming. You are fracturing this household apart. He fractured it apart when he bypassed my commencement to pursue garment shopping alongside Julian. That excludes fairness. Julian required me that afternoon. I required you additionally, Mom. I stood preceding 300 candidates featuring nobody in my segment. An unfamiliar parent embraced me and told me she felt value for me. Elena's expression faltered. For an instant, I envisioned she might actually perceive me. Then the faltering solidified into something alternative. Should you decline providing your father the capital, he's going to accept it individually. You know how he operates. There it existed. Excluding an apology, excluding an acknowledgement, a caution enveloped within the expression of anxiety, yet carrying the mass of a hazard. He can operate however he desires, Mom. The resolution represents negative. She concentrated on me for an extended duration. Then she entered into her transport, secured the entry, and navigated away without alternative utterance. I stood in the parking space and watched her sedan dissolve down the approach route. She had navigated 45 minutes to weep in a parking space across a military base. She had never navigated 4 hours to observe me graduate. I returned back inside, sat at my desk. My fingers remained vibrating, though my delivery had not cracked once. I preserved that reality. Day 7. The boundary. Arthur never phoned to coordinate a collection interval, never messaged, never dispatched anyone across his interest. I forwarded one concluding communication that dawn. The 7-day interval has concluded. Your items are contained and occupy the workspace. You can coordinate a monitored collection this weekend. Subsequent to Sunday, I am donating what remains. His reaction arrived within under 2 minutes. You lack authority to discard my estate. That represents conversion. I displayed my partner the text. He shook his head. It excludes conversion should we provided him a week and tracked everything. I recognized that, though I additionally recognized my parent avoided constructing a lawful point. He remained constructing a leverage maneuver, the identical action he'd been operating since I reached 16. Proclaim control over something that avoided belonging to his person and challenge someone to push rearward. That afternoon, I structured the verification one additional instance. Every communication text reproduced and dated. Security portal observation preserved onto an electronic storage. Visuals of every object featuring indicators. The yellow legal pad featuring the categorized register. The blemish visual. My primary communication establishing the 7-day boundary. His omission to answer. I placed everything within the protective sleeve and positioned it across the kitchen surface. My partner focused at it. That represents exhaustive. The service educated me regarding numerous elements: how to advance, how to qualify across a weapon parameter, how to manage a load for a 12-mile march. Yet the element that preserved me represented something a management leader informed me across my third afternoon. Should it lack documentation, it failed to transpire. My partner gestured. Everything transpired, I stated, and I possessed the document to validate it. Saturday dawn, my partner and I remained both home. The house remained clean. The sleeve occupied the surface. The unused cylinder remained secured. The portal signal sounded at 0915. Tori provided her dad 7 days. He avoided collecting a solitary object. Now the boundary has concluded and he remains calling it conversion. Yet what transpires subsequent when the portal signal sounds on Saturday dawn? That represents the instance everything alters. Stay with me. This is about to turn substantial. I unfastened the front door. My parent stood across the patio in his operational shoes and a flannel garment, upper limbs at his borders, jaw compressed. Behind his position in the path, my mother rested in the passenger position of his truck with the powertrain ordering. I desire my machinery, he stated. Enter through the front. We will escort your path to the workspace. He avoided shifting. I exclude being escorted in my native daughter's residence like a lawbreaker. You exclude being escorted. We remain being present. Those represent distinct elements. He focused past my position at my partner standing in the hallway. An element transformed in his characterization. Excluding anger precisely. Calculation. Then he advanced through the entrance. We escorted his path to the workspace. My partner unfastened it from the interior control. The boxes remained positioned against the barrier, organized, nated, every casting rod enveloped in protective wrapping and identified. The storage chest cleans down, sections secured. The cooling unit remained disconnected, cleansed, and moisture-free. The equipment container remained fastened and positioned atop the identified packing boxes. Arthur halted within the corridor and concentrated. He'd anticipated disruption. He'd anticipated his machinery tossed inside refuse containers or piled across the path. He'd anticipated feeling incensed. Contrarily, everything remained categorized, organized, accessible for collection. Military accuracy. He avoided expressing gratitude. He advanced toward the storage chest initially and unfastened the lowest section, searched around beneath the lining, focused upward at me. "The opener is missing," Arthur stated. "I discarded it," my partner stated. "We discarded the item." Arthur's features tensed. He secured the section and initiated transferring toward the transport. I transferred him objects as he required them. Neither of us articulated. The solitary sounds represented the friction of packing boxes across cement and the gate groaning beneath the mass. Midway throughout, he halted. He rotated around deliberately, leaned against the gate, crossed his upper limbs. "You consider yourself exceptional." His delivery remained low, regulated, though barely. "Transform the cylinders, terminate the capital, dispatch your mother weeping from a parking space?" I articulated nothing, waited. "I developed you, Clara. I provided sustenance across the surface throughout 18 terms. I preserved a shelter over your skull. I instructed you how to ride a cycle and how to replace a tire. And this represents what I secure? $8 and a locking mechanism? You avoided participating at my commencement, Father." He dismissed his arm like I'd articulated something minor. "That represented primary preparation. That excludes a genuine commencement. Your sibling celebration represented a genuine occasion, a genuine milestone, something that actually mattered. Excluding a genuine commencement, he articulated it like 10 weeks of preparation, chemical operations, and qualifying alongside a weapon represented summer residency. Like standing within assembly while a leader pinned my distinction represented nothing. My partner stepped forward. "Sir, utilizing all appropriate respect, your daughter supported her nation. That event represented reality." Arthur's finger arose, pointed toward my partner's chest. "This exists between myself and my daughter. Detach from it." I stepped between their positions, excluding quickly, excluding aggressively, merely migrated inside the space. "My partner represents my kin, Father. He participated, you avoided." Arthur's hand descended. His features traversed through 3 adjustments within 2 seconds. Startle, subsequent resentment, then something I'd never observed previously. Something approximating vulnerability. The vulnerability of an individual who'd merely grasped his control possessed 0 boundaries remaining to resonate off of. He transferred the final packing box without an utterance, slammed the gate, entered into the transport. My mother concentrated directly forward through the glass. She avoided looking toward me. The transport migrated away. The route became quiet. Monday dawn. My device signaled at 0845. Julian. Primary instance, he dialed me individually since the application occurrence. I almost avoided responding. However, something directed me to attend to what he'd formulated. "Listen," his delivery remained regulated, practiced. "I recognize elements remain intense between yourself and Father. However, this celebration represents really vital to my person. Can we merely structure the capital matter? I'm excluding asking the complete 8,000, even 3 would back. What did you contribute toward my commencement, Julian? What? That represented initial preparation. Everyone executes initial preparation. And everyone possesses a wedding celebration. Not everyone requests their sibling for 8,000 to finance it. Void. I could perceive his respiration transform. The sibling delivery remained holding, though merely barely. You know, Clara, you've invariably remained resentful of me since we represented children. This excludes connection with capital. This connects with you being bitter because you possessed elements easier. Bitter would represent calling you labels. What I am excluding represents saying negative. Fine. His delivery turned flat, piercing. The practice remained concluded. Then avoid anticipating an invitation toward my celebration. I am excluding possessing someone present who opposes me across my distinctive afternoon. Okay. That captured his position off protection. He anticipated a conflict. He anticipated me to scramble to offer dissents, to request for an invitation. Contrarily, I provided him 1 unit and waited. Okay. That represents all you possess to articulate? What would you desire me to articulate? He disconnected. I positioned the device down and consumed my beverage. Outside, a songbird sat across the barrier marker. Copper pressed her muzzle against the glass entrance and whimpered. I hadn't arranged on participating at the celebration, though hearing Julian cancel the invitation still structured somewhere. Excluding within the location he intended, merely somewhere. That week, I executed something I'd never executed previously. I structured an analysis folder, excluding for tribunal, excluding for a counselor. For precision, I sat at the kitchen surface every evening following employment and organized everything into a single document, a timeline, absolute. 0 modifiers, 0 sentiment, merely dates and occurrences. The electronic remittances, 30 times for 400 per period, total 12,000. Julian's credit obligation redemptions, 1,200 and 2,300, total 3,500. Combined financial backing across 2.5 terms, 15,500. Metric of domestic units at my first preparation commencement, 0. Metric of days between commencement and the 8,000 message, 22 days. I phoned my associate, Corporal Lewis, the woman whose relative had welcomed me across Relative Day. Lou, you managed domestic tension when you supported. How'd you handle the situation? Maintained everything in text, never interacted across the device if I could message contrarily. And should they ever emerge uninvited, I contacted the authorities initially. The authorities? Advance preceding the narrative. The first individual to contact represents the individual who sets the perspective. I evaluated regarding that. Then I unfastened the domestic communication and formulated a message. I avoided transmitting it, merely inscribed it and preserved it within my references. The message represented basic, a summary of everything. Commencement, the capital, the workspace, the extra opener, the duplicate of the duplicate, the backup arrangement remark from the communication, all of it established within sequence, dated and absolute. I displayed my partner that evening. He reviewed it through twice. It excludes unkindness, he stated. It represents merely truth. That represents what renders it crushing, I resolved. I preserved the formulation. Julian's celebration remained 9 days' distance. I would recognize when to transmit it. Julian's celebration transpired on a Saturday within November. 53 degrees, cloudy. The kind of afternoon that appears exceptional in visuals should you balance the exposure. My partner and I remained home. I prepared stew within the slow cooker. He gathered foliage in the rear space. Copper pursued rodents. We avoided acknowledging the celebration once until my device initiated signaling after 16 hours. Social platforms, Julian's associates identifying him in visuals. Julian within white, radiant. Arthur escorting his path down the path in a lented garment, jaw elevated, elevated value. Elena in the front row clearing her vision within a delicate textile. I navigated through the visuals the method you observe a broadcast regarding strangers, attracted, perhaps, though distinct, like I remained reviewing other personnel's domestic unit, which in a method I remained. At 17:22, cousin Amy messaged me individually. Everyone observed you exclude being present. Your father informed personnel you remained stationed across international territory and failed to arrive. Stationed? My parent informed 100 celebration visitors that I remained stationed. I remained resting across my settee in loungewear 4 miles from the facility consuming stew. He falsified, Amy integrated, utilizing an expression indicator. I concentrated at the text. He avoided merely bypassing my commencement. He expunged my absence from his native narrative, rendered himself the proud service parent whose daughter remained international, contrarily to the individual whose daughter ceased responding to his signals. My partner entered inside from the rear space, foliage within his hair. You remain intact? Affirmative. I evaluate I am. And I intended it. That evening at 2014, throughout the gathering, I unfastened the domestic group communication and inserted the message I'd formulated a week preceding, the timeline, the metrics, the absolutes. I pressed transmission. Every device across the primary surface signaled at the identical instance. The communication illuminated inside of 3 minutes. Aunt Gloria, primary as invariably. Clara, this represents Julian's afternoon. How could you execute this? Uncle Frank turned quiet. He'd reviewed the financial matrix. 12,000 within remittances, 3,500 within credit obligation redemptions, 15,500 altogether. He avoided publishing again for the remainder of the night. My mother. This represents fabrications. We never designated your position a backup arrangement. I avoided answering. I'd articulated what I required to articulate. The document validated independently. Julian at 23:47 that night, a message excluding within the group communication merely to my person. Connected represented a reflection, coloration down both profiles, matronial garment distorted at the border. The environment appeared similar to a bathroom cubicle. You shattered my celebration. I recorded back 1 row. I remained absent. How could I shatter it? She avoided answering. My parent dispatched nothing. 0 message, 0 signal, 0 audio recording. Complete void. That represented the segment that rendered me uncertain. I'd witnessed him incensed. I'd witnessed him hazardous. I'd never witnessed him turn quiet. My partner and I observed a broadcast that night, some tactical element featuring excessive concussions. I dropped to repose across the settee midway throughout. He positioned a covering above my person and permitted me to repose until dawn. Sunday represented tranquility. I avoided inspecting the group communication. I avoided contacting anyone. I escorted Copper to the clearing, gathered provisions, returned home, structured dinner, experienced a standard, unremarkable Sunday. Across Monday, I advanced to employment. Tuesday represented the identical. Tuesday afternoon, my terminal device signaled, the portal receptionist across the logistics office. Specialist Vance, there exists a connection for your person across line 2. It represents the Collinsville Police Department. My core plummeted, then stabilized. Thank you. I will receive it. Ma'am, this represents Officer Davis alongside the Collinsville Police Department. We obtained a protest from a Raymond Vance about a state across your residence along Elm Street. He is asserting conversion of private effects and non-authorized lockout from the location. I sat upright, squared my frame. My delivery emerged uniform and clear, the method the service had educated it to execute. Officer, I comprehend. I can clarify the environment. Would you select to analyze this at the residence? We are actually dispatching someone over currently, ma'am. Can you encounter our position there within roughly 30 minutes? Affirmative, ma'am. I will remain present. I disconnected, executed one breath, dialed my partner. My parent contacted the authorities regarding me. 2 seconds of void, then, I will possess the verification organized. Encounter your position at home. I informed my leader I possessed a personal concern and exited base. The transit home took 14 minutes. I kept both fingers on the wheel. I inspected my mirrors. I operated the speed limitation. My parent contacted the authorities regarding me. Excluding because I converted anything, excluding because I endangered anyone, excluding because I executed a volition, because I ceased contributing, because I transformed a cylinder, because I forwarded $8 contrary to 8,000 and said the truth in a group communication. He had utilized every implement within his arsenal. Remorse, domestic enforcement, my mother's tears, my siblings' final statement, the extra opener, the workspace, the declaration to separate from me. 0 of it functioned. Consequently, he contacted the officers, the concluding control card. I entered into the path at 1542. There existed a municipal car positioned in front of the residence. My partner's truck remained already present. The patio illumination remained active. I deactivated the powertrain, collected my focus, advanced to the primary entrance. It was time to conclude this. 2 officers stood within the entryway. Officer Davis represented a woman roughly my age, dark hair bound rearward, professional. Her associate, Officer Chen, stood taller, quieter, maintaining a ledger. Ma'am, we obtained a protest, Davis stated. Object if we rest down? Naturally. Can I provide your position anything? Hydration? We remain fine, thank you. We sat at the dining surface. My partner remained already present, featuring the protective sleeve unfastened in front of his position. He established the documents in sequence, similar to a summary, similar to a distribution check, because that's what we executed. Officers, my wife possesses some verification your position might discover relevant. My partner shifted it across. Primary sheet, the message establishing the 7-day collection boundary, date identified, capture reproduced. Subsequent sheet, security portal observation captures, Arthur trying the historical workspace combination 3 instances, attempting the primary entrance alongside the historical opener, impacting the workspace. Third sheet, visuals of every object within the workspace, time identified, alongside the categorized register. Fourth sheet, estate documentation indicating the residence corresponds to Julian and Clara Vance, sole owners, 0 alternative titles. Davis scanned through each sheet, Chen recorded observations, neither of them articulated throughout roughly 2 minutes. Davis focused upward. Ma'am, based upon what I am reviewing, this estate corresponds to you and your partner. Represents that accurate? Affirmative, ma'am. My parent possessed an extra opener, which we canceled. We provided him 7 days structural notification to collect his effects. He attempted to enter lacking authorization across day 5. We tracked everything. Davis gestured slowly. She focused at her associate. Chen provided a minor gesture back. Ma'am, this appears to represent a civil concern, Davis stated, excluding criminal. Across the route, my parent's truck sat positioned at the border. He remained observing. A strike at the primary entrance. Forceful. 3 instances. Officer Davis walked over and unfastened it. Arthur stood there, jaw compressed. I desire my estate back, instantly. Davis stepped out onto the patio. Sir, we've reviewed the verification. This represents a civil concern. You'll require to resolve this within civil tribunal should you evaluate you possess a declaration. Arthur's features turned crimson. You are excluding accepting my machinery. That represents conversion. Sir, they provided your position structural notification. You possessed 7 days. You attempted to enter lacking authorization. That remains tracked. Arthur focused past Davis into the residence, straight at my position. This excludes over, Clara. Then he rotated and walked back to his truck. Davis secured the entrance. You managed that successfully, she stated. Thank you, officer. She transferred me her card. Should he attempt again, contact our position initially. I gestured. We escorted their path out. The route turned quiet once more. That night, the group communication remained dead. 0 unused messages. Nobody backing Arthur. Nobody calling my person unkind anymore. The absolutes had executed what sentiment failed to handle. I sat at the dining surface alongside my partner and copper at my feet. The protective sleeve remained secured. The cylinders remained transformed. The capital remained terminated. For the primary instance in 32 terms, I wasn't the backup arrangement. I represented merely Clara. My partner extended across the surface and gathered my hand. You remain intact? Affirmative, I stated. I evaluate I am. Outside, the atmosphere migrated through the branches. Inside, it remained quiet. Excluding the substantial, waiting category of quiet, the tranquil category, the category you secure after you finally put something down that remained never yours to support. Arthur stood across the patio, frame extended, jaw compressed. He focused past my partner into the residence, observed the officers, observed the protective sleeve across the surface, observed my person resting, featuring my fingers clasped. Sir, advance inside, Davis stated. We have been reviewing the environment. He advanced interior, avoided removing his footwear, avoided resting down. That represents my machinery she possesses within that location. I desire it returned, and I desire her penalized with conversion. Davis's delivery remained uniform. Sir, your daughter provided a 7-day structural notification for collection. She possesses verification of your attempt to reach the estate lacking authorization. The residence remains within her title. Lawfully, this represents a civil concern, excluding a criminal instance. Arthur's faces darkened from the collar upward. She transformed the cylinders on my person. I possessed an opener to this residence. Proprietors possess the entitlement to transform their cylinders at any interval, sir. He rotated toward my position. Full frame rotation, similar to an individual who'd merely forfeited his last marker and was about to upend the surface. After everything I executed for your person, after I developed you, this is how you manage your parent, utilizing officers and cylinders and $8? I concentrated at him, maintained my delivery uniform, maintained my respiration steady. You avoided participating at my commencement. You requested my person for 8,000 3 weeks subsequent. You relocated your machinery into my workspace without asking. You constructed a duplicate of my residence opener without informing me. You attempted to force entry when I transformed the cylinders. I paused, permitted the void to hold. You kept on stating you comprehend naturally. Affirmative, Dad. I finally comprehend. He unfastened his mouth, secured it, unfastened it once more. His fingers were vibrating, excluding from sorrow, from the type of rage that possesses nowhere remaining to go. He focused toward Officer Davis for backing. Her features remained detached, professional. Sir, I'd recommend your position organize a mutually determined interval to collect your remaining objects. Should there exist an additional conflict regarding estate, you'll require to manage it through civil tribunal. Arthur rotated and stepped out. The primary entrance drifted open. He avoided securing it. Transport entry slammed, power train roared, tires left markings across the asphalt. The route turned quiet. Officer Davis gathered the documentation and transferred the sleeve back toward my partner. "Ma'am," she stated, hesitating at the entrance, "for what it represents, you managed that successfully. A collection of personnel exclude tracking elements the method you executed." "Thank you, officer." "One additional element. Should he return toward the estate lacking your authorization, contact our position. At that juncture, it represents trespassing." They departed. I watched the municipal car pull away from the pane. Then I secured the entrance, rotated the unused cylinder, positioned my spine against the wood, and lingered there. My partner approached behind my position. He avoided articulating anything, avoided contacting my person, merely lingered there, proximate enough that I could perceive his presence, distant enough that I possessed clearing. "It represents concluded," I stated. "It represents concluded," he stated. I transitioned into the kitchen, unfastened the container adjacent to the range, the minor container where I preserved elastic bands, extra cells, and a driver. There used to exist a fastener on the interior of the cabinet barrier, a brass fastener where my parents' extra opener hung throughout 2 terms. The fastener remained remaining there, though the opener turned missing. I'd discarded the item. My partner had discarded the duplicate. I detached the fastener. 2 minor fasteners, consumed roughly 30 seconds. I sustained it within my palm, a minor brass fastener. Nothing, realistically, $1.50 across any hardware merchant. However, it had sustained something that avoided belonging within that location anymore. I dropped it inside the kitchen refuse bin. It settled atop the beverage remnants, featuring a minor vibration. Certain elements exclude requiring a location anymore. That evening, my partner and I sat across the rear patio, featuring copper between our positions. The community remained quiet. Insect sounds, a distant grass device, the category of standard sounds you exclude appreciating until the disruption ceases. I inspected my device. 4 missed signals from Elena, 1 text from Julian. Father remains stating he remains going to litigate against you. I rotated the device down and positioned it face beneath across the armrest. "Do you evaluate I advanced too far?" I inquired of my partner. He focused at my person, genuinely focused, the method he executed when he remained selecting his units deliberately. "You dispatched a group communication featuring absolutes. You transformed your native cylinders. You cooperated entirely alongside the authorities. Where precisely represents too far?" I leaned rearward, evaluated about Sergeant Vance. The method sheet escorted my path across the assembly grass and transferred my person to an unknown person's relative because she could see what mine had declined to represent. "Kin participates," I stated, unobtrusively, almost toward myself. My partner gestured. "Kin participates. You participated, Devon. I invariably will." We sat there until the illumination decayed. Copper breathed between our positions. My device signaled once more before I disabled it completely. "Cousin Amy, greetings. I reviewed the group communication message you dispatched. I possessed zero awareness of any of it. The capital, the commencement, all of it. I feel regret, Clara. I feel genuinely regretful." I recorded back. "Thank you, Amy. That signifies more than you recognize." It did so. 3 weeks subsequent to the authorities arriving at my residence, I donated my parents' remaining objects toward charity. He never phoned to coordinate the collection, never dispatched anyone, never initiated the litigation Julian cautioned me regarding. Merely void. The loudest void I'd ever heard from Arthur Vance. The storage chest migrated primary, subsequent the casting rods, the equipment container, the utility table, the 2 unmarked boxes. One of them materialized to represent packed with historical outdoor journals. The alternative possessed a collective of bits and a framed graphic of Arthur at 25, standing adjacent to his native parent, neither of them grinning. I focused at that graphic throughout an extended duration before I positioned it within the charity allocation. My mother dispatched a communication, physical correspondence, 2 sheets, handwritten across stationery featuring rose patterns across the margins. The primary sheet represented remorse, the subsequent represented a final statement. "When you remain prepared to offer defense, we will remain here." I avoided answering. Cousin Amy phoned the subsequent week. She told me something that anchored. "At the gathering reception, subsequent to everyone reviewing your message, your dad sat individual at Surface 4 for roughly 20 minutes. He merely sat there concentrating at his device, avoided conversing with anyone, avoided consuming. Then he stood upward, advanced to the microphone, and delivered his commendation like nothing transpired." She hesitated. "He appeared aged, Clara. Genuinely aged." I avoided experiencing gratification when she articulated that. I avoided experiencing vindication. I experienced something smaller and weightier, similar to an entrance closing across a room I used to inhabit. I registered in an internet administration program that period, primary course initiated in January, sustained through the veteran benefit. I avoided calling home, home avoided calling me. For the primary instance in 32 terms, the void avoided alarming me. It felt like the initiation of something I'd been waiting for my entire existence. Personnel will designate your position self-absorbed for establishing boundaries. They will state you remain cold, unappreciative, unfeeling. However, here represents what I discovered standing within that commencement line, featuring nobody within my segment. The personnel who care regarding your person exclude rendering you earn the sentiment. They participate. They participate even when it demands something of them. And should they decline to participate for your person, you possess every entitlement to cease participating for their interest. That excludes cruelty. That excludes retaliation. That represents merely finally determining that your tranquility signifies more than their convenience. That represents my account. 3 vacant positions, 1 $8 remittance, and a collective of cylinders that transformed everything. Should this prompt your memory that your tranquility signifies more than their validation, distribute the text with someone who requires to hear it. Select subscription, and I will encounter your position in the subsequent sequence.